أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله أوله بلا أول كان قبله وآخره بلا آخر يكون بعده الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا حبيب إله رب العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد
وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المعصومين ولعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه المجيد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون صدق الله العلي العظيم. أما بعد والسلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Greetings and felicitations upon the birth of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, the first son of Imam Ali and Hazrat Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha. Indeed a joyous occasion, a day of celebration, and we could just reflect upon how much Hazrat Fatima was happy in history. And that itself, the same way as it brings tears to our eyes, that how much she suffered, the same way it becomes a joyous occasion for us, how much she was happy. As we all know that the Prophet have clearly mentioned that the pleasure of Fatima is the pleasure of God, and the anger of Fatima is the anger of God. So today indeed, on that same token, is a day of pleasure of Siddiqa Kubra Fatima Zahra and the day of pleasure of God Himself. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, there are a lot of misconception in regards to his personality, which have been forged with the propagation machine, which was founded by Muawiyah right from the very beginning. As you all know that when Imam Ali's news spread that he was martyred in the masjid, people in Syria were asking, really? Is he used to go to the masjid? So this was the propagation machine. And this also produced the rumors of Imam Hassan alayhi salam having about 250 wives. So you could clearly imagine that how much they really worked hard in order to defame these great personalities. And the very nicely delivered lecture by our sister here just before I came clearly pointed out to that the conditions of peace which Imam Hassan laid. And it's a clear manifest error in Muawiyah's part, and history dictates that. It clearly points out to there are certain unavoidable historical facts that the history have recorded in the reign of Muawiyah that took place, that manifest that he was clearly against this, against the pact, against the treaty which Imam Hassan signed, such as the martyrdom of Hujr ibn Uday, who was one of the companions of the Prophet, who was killed in the living daylight under the reign of Muawiyah. And clearly where Imam alayhi salam mentions that the lovers of Ali, the public property, cruelty should not be carried out. The peace treaty really reflects those important principles which the Imams always stayed for, which the Prophet stood for. For example, when he's talking about respecting others' opinion, as Imam Hassan respected that opinion before signing that pact. One of the Sunni historian clearly mentions in his book when Imam Hassan delivered that sermon, in which he clearly said, in which he clearly said that Muawiyah have invited me to an act which will bring dishonor and lack of dignity, disrespect. However, if you all agree with me, then we could face him with sword in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and judge him. Basically, he was inviting him to defend the borders of Islam because he had come down to near Mosul. As you all know, that the political sort of feud that was already going on when Imam Hassan became the Khalifa, he accepted the reign of Khilafat, and how Muawiyah was always kind of attacking the governance of Imam Ali and then Imam Hassan now. So here, when Muawiyah sent that invitation of signing a peace treaty, Imam Hassan said clearly that he has invited me towards injustice, he has invited me towards disgrace, towards dishonor. Now, if you all agree, I would take his advice, but if you don't, then we would face him. The opinion was that accept the pact, accept the treaty. And Imam Hassan surrendered to the opinion of the people. There was lack of support for Imam Hassan, and that wise leadership tailored that peace treaty which we just saw, which was delivered by our sister here. And he said, on these conditions I would accept. And eventually this once again pointed out to how victoriously the followers of the religion of Islam came out peacefully without any bloodshed. Today in history, people who are followers of that school of thought even agree upon and are a bit shy to really discuss about the personality of Muawiyah. I have personally met Dr. Tahir Qadri, who visits Canada as well, and we have spoken in length in regards to the personality of Muawiyah, and he is publishing in the near future some work on him which is quite critical as well. Allama Maududi also have discussed his personality. So therefore, today, those who are knowledgeable, those who are scholars, those who have knowledge, clearly raises a question mark around the personality of Muawiyah. Not discussing in regards to the Khulafa Rashidun, but when we are talking about Muawiyah, there's a lot of discussion that goes in. Now, Imam Hassan, with this peace treaty, clearly became victorious, and his leadership, his unique leadership to really accept that peace treaty, once again points out to that. And the same way how the Sulh Hudaybiyah, the peace treaty of Hudaybiyah, brought Islam out in flying colors, the same peace treaty of Muawiyah also brought Islam out of in flying colors and provided that base, that foundation and that support to Imam Hussein to really raise up and have those followers, because Imam Hassan did not even have 72 followers. They were very hand-picked. And Imam Hussein, with that leadership, once again, with outwardly losing the battle of Karbala, but once again saved humanity, saved peace, saved those principles which was laid in Islam, which was laid by the Prophet. I would request for a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now, as the topic that we will be discussing for the future nights and tonight is servitude, ubudiyah. I think, as we already have Ayatollah Google, as our sister just mentioned, I just checked in Google and I found out So there's not much of a need of ours to really discuss that, but it's a good gathering, it's an opportunity, alhamdulillah. These days everything is on internet, we could really search. But as the Quran also says that فَذَكِّرْ إِن نَفَعَتِ الذِّكْرَ in Surah Ala, it says a reminder is always good. There is naf, there is fa'idah in reminder. So let this be just a reminder, reminding myself and also you brothers and sisters who are present here, of what this phenomena of servitude and ubudiyah is. It is a very unique phenomena that if one reflects upon, one comes to the understanding of God Himself. If one really investigates what ubudiyat is, one will understand what God is. Because it stands completely in opposite to God. And it reaches to a level, it becomes a pure reflection of God. That is why the Prophet said that the greatest quality that I have is being an abd, being a slave. Right? And as he becomes the greatest slave, or as he has this quality, then he becomes the reflection or the manifestation of God Himself. That is why God uses the term that when وَمَا رَمَيْتَ إِذْ رَمَيْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ رَمَى. O Prophet, when you are shooting that arrow, it is not you who is shooting, but it is God who is shooting that arrow. Or when they pay allegiance on your hand, it is not they are paying allegiance on your hand, but it is the hand of God. So an abd, a slave, with the implementation of this concept, of this reality, of this phenomena of ubudiyah in his life, becomes God-like. So it is really a journey of ours, a journey through ubudiyah, knowing God. It is a journey of ours by which we connect to God consciously. It is a journey of ours through ubudiyah. We connect to God consciously, because everything is in the state of ubudiyah by principle. So this here, we are taking one step further. By mentioning that, we divide servitude into two folds. One is a metaphysical servitude of God, of ubudiyat of God, where every created thing is serving God and serving His purpose regardless. Because there cannot be anything opposite to God other than being an abd, other than being a servant, because He is the Malik. Every created thing is limited. So if that thing is limited, then it will be a servant. Then it will be, in the service of God, in the service of the Malik. So ubudiyat, servitude, is divided into two folds. One is the servitude which is known as takwini in Arabic or in Farsi, which means the metaphysical servitude, which God talks about, which God really clearly says that whatsoever comes to me in the Quran, whatsoever returns back to me, it returns back to me in the state of servitude. Or for example, يَسْأَلُ لَهُ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Whatsoever is in the heaven and earth, they are seeking or they are asking God. They are questioning God. Questioning itself points out to that I don't have. When I don't have, I question. So yes, يَسْأَلُ لَهُ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Whatsoever is in the heaven and earth, they are asking God. Or if you want to say in the bracket, they are seeking God. It is like one of the philosophers, renowned philosophers of 16th century, known as Sadruddin Shirazi. Still, his works are being studied in the West. We have, great scholars such as Sayyid Nasr, Oliver Lehman. These philosophers in the West are really studying his works and trying to bring out and give light to his his publications, which were in Arabic and Farsi. A very fascinating figure, was known to be a transcendental philosopher. He describes this principle, we could say that, by a type of existence which he called wujud-e-rabit, which means that an existence that is known as an existence of connection. Meaning that, for example, the light and the sun. The sunlight is nothing without the sun. The sunlight is wujud-e-rabit, is wrapped, is connected to the sun. So the light will have no entity independently. It has no existence by itself, unless the sun is there. So in the same fashion, on the same token, the whole creation is nothing but like the sunlight to the sun. If the sun is not there, there will be no sunlight. And obviously in this light, I would add on here, there are grades and intensities. Some of the light is very intense as it's closer. Some of the light is a bit dim as it's far away, but all it's considered as light. This could be reflected in the mystical principle which was laid forward by Ibn Arabi as Wahdatul Wujud, the oneness of being, and later on explained by another philosopher, Mullah Sadra, and also recently by Mullah Hadi Sabzawari in the 19th century in the book, in the philosophical text called Sharh Manzume, the grades of light. Sohrawardi, another philosopher, also discusses on the same token as well. There are different grades of light, but it's one wujud, one existence. And there can be any other existence than the existence of God. If we accept, then we are agreeing for duality here. Now, returning back onto our topic. So this existence, this wujud, we all, everything created, are in connection to God. And if they are not connected to God with the principle of servitude, which means that they are nothing. Ya ayyuhan nas antumul fuqara ila Allah, inna Allah ghaniyul hamid. O mankind, you are faqir ila Allah, towards God, except that God is ghaniyul hakim. He is ghani, He is rich. So it's like, another way of explaining it is like, I tell you an elephant. You all imagine elephant. Then I tell you a horse. You all imagine that. Where is that elephant gone? It's no longer there. It's just gone just like that. So the creation is like that, in that consciousness of God. If in the consciousness of God that creation is not there, it's gone. It's vanished. It perishes. And the way they are connected to, or the way they reflect their connection, is by being limited, is by being helpless, is by being in service of God. That's what ubudiyat means. So metaphysically speaking, they are connected in this fashion, everything, regardless. And then there is the second type of ubudiyat, which is ba ikhtiyar, which is by choice. A person connects to God by manifesting his true reality. That's why the Prophet said that the greatest quality or the greatest title that I love is being an abd. That is my true reality. I am a servant. I am a slave. That is why وَأَشْهَدُ أَنَّ مُحَمَّدًا عَبْدُهُ, and then Rasul is abd. So he says that that type of connection or being an abd is known as that ubudiyat by choice. A servitude with choice. Voluntarily, a person is manifesting, is showing his ubudiyat, his servitude to God. Now, obviously, when it comes to voluntarily manifesting that, this points out to different grades and levels of servitude now. Now, I'll mention one little thing in the margin to understand this, the importance of this voluntary servitude. We agree in principle that everything is a journey towards God and it is serving God. It's serving His purpose, because God clearly mentions that nothing returns to me except that with ibadat. In kullu man fis samawati wal ard illa ati ar-rahmani abda. Whatsoever is in the heaven and the earth, illa ati ar-rahman, they come to the Rahman with what? Abda. Yeah, they're abdan, they're abd. Now here, this is the metaphysical, right? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. That is also metaphysical, regardless whether we want to go or not. Raji'un. Regardless of what happened with us in Barzakh, it will happen. Imam Ali alayhi salam says that I do not like to die young and enter paradise, but I would rather like to die older and know God. Because it's a journey of knowing God. In another version of a tradition, it says that a child who dies is taught in Barzakh about God. He has to prepare himself so he becomes intelligent enough, conscious enough that he is able to meet God. Because Ya ayyuhal insan innaka kadihun ila rabbika kadhan famulaqi. All mankind, Ya ayyuhal insan, not just Muslims, all mankind is a journey to meet God. Every individual will meet God. And obviously meeting God requires a lot of preparation. We are talking about our Lord. Just meeting the Prime Minister or President, it requires a lot of preparation. One really have to do really good in, for example, for a young lad in school must be an A star so that he could get a reward from the President, so he has the opportunity to meet the President or the Prime Minister or whatever reason. And that preparation is there for the meeting, the Prime Minister or President. Apart from that haiba, that sort of halat, that state that comes about for meetings with the king, the heart should be prepared of that, right? Must be strong enough. Sometimes, you tell somebody that you're having an opportunity to meet such a celebrity or whatever, they go, they lose, for example, their mind, or some people even with joy might die, for example, right? Just as an example. Right? So the same way with the Lord, it requires a lot of preparation. So this preparation is metaphysical, or this preparation is voluntary. One could prepare oneself by choice. As-sawmu li wa ana udziya wa adzia bih. The Prophet said, fast is for me and I will give the reward. Or Jawad Amali mentions here in interpretation of this hadith, he says, fast is for me wa ana udziya, which means that I am the reward itself. The Jannah is not the reward, the castle or whatever. God Himself is the reward. That great ibadat is fasting. That great invitation is fasting. Right? As-sawmu li wa ana adzia bih. So fasting is for me and I am the reward, or I will reward you. But for other ibadah, God have said that there is Jannah, the angels will reward you, they will give you salam, so on and so forth. But for fasting in particular, He has said this hadith, that I am the reward, or I will reward. So a person who fasts will have the opportunity to take the reward from God Himself. This is meeting again. Not meeting an angel and getting the reward, or not entering a house in the paradise because you fasted under that. But I will reward you. So it's an opportunity. It's a great ibadah, fasting is. So this meeting required something, which was fasting. Now I fasted voluntarily with my choice. I could not have fasted, but I did. So meeting, whether we like it or not, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, is there. Now, as that is there already in this dunya and barzakh and also qiyamah, it will prepare us. Now these preparation sometimes is painful. It has to be prepared because it is natural. It goes, the childbirth. It's painful, right? It's natural. It has to be there, and it just can't be. Whatever possible way you can imagine, there will be pain. Right? So the same way, meeting, which is the most pleasure thing ever one could really imagine. There's no pleasure other than that. To see the face of Layli is very pleasurable. But you have to become Majnoon to see the face of Layli. A person who is not Majnoon, but to be Majnoon is very painful. Poor fellow Majnoon. He was always suffering, people hitting stones, so on and so forth. But just that glimpse of Layli is so pleasurable. He doesn't mind all of those stones and whatever. Right? So now, servitude, ubudiyat, one is voluntarily. If one performs it, he prepares himself, and it is not as painful as one is pushed and shuffled and to do that. When you do the tawaf of the Kaaba, when it's very crowded, if you go with the flow, you're fine. If you try to resist, you're in trouble. Right? So voluntarily is just going with the flow which God have kind of designed and fashioned, because He knows. So fasting and other ibadah that are mentioned by the Lord is in that accord, and will bring about those qualities in us which will allow us to have that pleasureful meeting with God. One more thing as an example in the margin I will mention in regards to the meeting: charity. Charity is one of the qualities which is required that will make our meeting with God pleasureful. Now, regardless of this charity be in a form of the way that God had mentioned for Muslims in the Quran, or whether that be in the form of Mother Teresa giving charity, she has already conquered that soul which is stingy and greedy much better than many Muslims. So she has that quality in her. So obviously, as she has already this sort of quality in her, doesn't require a forceful change of her personality to adapt to that quality to meet God. So when we look at the commands or basically what God wants from us, by performance of that, by fulfillment of that voluntarily, it eases us. It makes us, prepare us to really meet God. Now, for example, it will even take us to the extent where God says that Bal ibadun mukramun, in regards to the angels. They are, mukram is from ikram, respectful, honorable. Angels are like that, right? And they are also doing it by knowledge. The angels are doing by knowledge, serving God by knowledge. لا يسبقونه بالقول وهم بأمره يعملون. They do not, supersede or oversay the qawl, and they, are aware of the Lord. But when it comes to a human being, an insan, we are aware of the maqam or the station or the position of insan, where it says, Isjudu li Adam. Adam was asked to do sajda by the angels. Now, as he becomes the mirror of God, he also becomes the mirror of the same type of worship of God, which is sajda. Only God, we are supposed to do sajda too. But a human being also have become a loci of sajda, of prostration. Whether that be in the form of Yusuf, whether that be in the form of Hazrat Adam alayhi salam. Then all angels were asked to do sajda, very symbolically, right? So now we ask, you have ibadat, as we just said, we take another step further, as we divided ubudiyat into metaphysical and sort of voluntarily, and we gave some examples and have some understanding of this principle of servitude, ubudiyat. Now, what is the difference between ibadat, which means, namaz, roza, charity, hajj, zakat, and ubudiyat? What is ubudiyat? Ubudiyat is the spirit of ibadat. These actions of ours must have ubudiyat in it. If it doesn't have ubudiyat, it cannot walk, it cannot talk, it cannot run. The same way as the body does not have the spirit, it cannot do anything. It just lays there and it rottens. That's why the Quran says, وَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. Vow unto those who are worshipping. They are worshipping. Vow unto those. Well, they are worshipping, yes, but it does not have the spirit of servitude in it. It does not have the ubudiyat in their actions. So servitude is the spirit of ibadat, of worship, of serving. If servitude does not, if there is no servitude in serving, then that ibadat will bring no benefit to that person. It must have that principle of servitude, or that spirit of servitude, which means that it has to be for God, that one is carrying that action for God, sincerely and purely for Allah, for God. It must reflect that. That is why fasting tend to be of a higher weight compared to other ibadat. Once again, we fall onto that example of Somu li wa ana ajzi, fast is for me. Because fasting is quite hidden. The sister, if she wouldn't have said that she is very excited because the time of iftar is coming near, alhamdulillah, may Allah accept her fast, we wouldn't have known that she was fasting. Perhaps she was traveling, perhaps. For example, you don't know I'm fasting or not. There's no water here, because usually the speakers have the habit to drink water in the middle. And once one of my friends was giving a talk in the month of Ramadan, and he was so upset that there was no water. Then he realized it was month of Ramadan, because he was thinking it was. And then the next day, and in another period, not the same year, there was water kept. He started drinking. So then after the speech, he realized he was fasting. So we tend to forget. So we don't know whether a person is fasting or not. That's what I'm trying to say. Because an act which is hidden brings sincerity. An act which is hidden brings sincerity. Is much purer than an act which a person is trying to, carry out in public. It is natural. When I'm praying, for example, I'm reciting, I'm doing sajda, ruku. If there are a couple of people around, I'm doing it for Allah, but somehow there's a bit of contamination. Allah is the one who accepts, obviously. And one should not be overwhelmed with that and become, waswas, must be like, oh, did I do it right? Did I not do it right? No. And usually that's how, this psychological sort of illness of being doubtful comes about. One should really cut that right there. That, oh, am I really doing it for God or am I not? They say, no. Even if it be so that people are watching me and I'm doing good, that's okay. I'm a human being. I like to see myself in my selfies, don't I? I like to take selfies. I like myself. So if somebody likes me, so what? That's good for me. But I'm doing it for Allah. Right? One have to really cut that doubt and that shaitan, that waswas, to really come about. So fasting is a type of ibadah that is very sort of, how much time we got? No, I'm sorry.
We're good.
So So fasting is a type of ibadah that is not a show-off in there. Other people will not know. People who are walking on the street doesn't know. Many people doesn't know. So that becomes a greater form of ibadah, which will have a greater type of spirit in it, of servitude in it. So now the relationship between ibadat and ubudiyat is that it got the actions, which are actions of ibad or ibadat, must have the spirit of servitude, of ubudiyat in it, of being low and manifestation of that in the actions, in the words. That's why we find these du'as of Masumin, which reflect the lowest level of insan when connecting to God, vis-a-vis God, that who he is and what he is. And while doing so, this allows him to connect to God in a greater extent, in a greater format. Like for example, if you look at the Munajat of Shabani or Amir al-Mu'mineen, where he clearly says that, I use my sins itself as a means to connect you, as a wasila. Iqraru bidambik, the iqrar, the acceptance of that dhamb, I'm using this as a means to connect you. How beautiful our Lord is, how beautiful he is. I'm using my sins itself to connect you. What an opportunity. Right? So this points, so the manifestation of sincerity, the showing of that one is little in terms of doing that service to God, must be there in our actions. Must be there in our actions. Now, in order to understand the haqiqat ubudiyat, as mentioned in one of the famous hadiths of Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, which is known as the hadith of Unwan Basri. So I'll give you a little bit of background, and then we'll look into that hadith in more detail. Unwan Basri was about a 96-year-old chap from the Sunni Maslak. He was a Sunni scholar, extensively involved in educating himself, with Muslim ibn Anas, another Sunni scholar there. He lived during the time of the sixth Imam. Sixth Imam, as you all know, was famous in terms of his knowledge, in terms of his sciences. Fascinating personality, well known, right? The advancement of many sciences today, they are indebted to Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, And moreover, having after all of this knowledge, very humble personality, very open, and allowed people to express their opinions without any fear. Tawheed al-Mufazzal, which is one of the famous treaty on Tawheed by the companion known as Mufazzal. It has been translated, and you could Google it. Ayatollah Google will tell you. I think Islam.org have this translation online. Mufazzal was in the Masjid al-Nabawi, and he overheard a debate of a heretic, of a person who was agnostic, speaking to his companion, teaching them, and pointing out to the grave of the Prophet, saying that he was a nice man, but certain of his thoughts were not right, as he was agnostic, obviously. Then Mufazzal got really frustrated. He jumped into the debate and started speaking to him in a very harsh way. He says, who are you? And he says, I'm Mufazzal. Who's your teacher? He says, Abu Abdullah. Oh, I know him. And he never behaved in this haughty way that you are behaving. He's very calm. He allows me to speak and express. Then Mufazzal kind of got a bit embarrassed, realized that. He goes to Imam Sadiq's house afterwards, and Imam Sadiq asks him that you look very down. What happened? Then he tells to Imam Sadiq what happened in the masjid. Then he says, come tomorrow and we'll speak. So he goes tomorrow, and then that treaty came about. Same way, Unwan Basri was a 96-year-old studying under, certain Sunni scholars of that time. He himself was a Sunni. Comes to Imam Sadiq and he says and requested that he take him under his wing to teach him. Imam Sadiq avoided him. He said that, okay, I am under heavy surveillance. It's better that you busy yourself with, Anas ibn Muslim and carry on, you study, you're a scholar yourself. So he did not accept him as a student, he rejected him. This also breaks the heart of Unwan Basri, that Imam Sadiq did not accept him. So he was affected by it and he stopped going out of the house, he stopped attending lessons, because a person who wants to gain knowledge and something of this accord happened, that breaks the heart, that shatters that person. And then he said that, okay, I will go to the Prophet and do tawassul. I will intercede the Prophet and I will pray to God that the heart of Abu Abdullah becomes soft for me so that he accepts me. So he goes to the grave of the Prophet, prays 2 rakat prayer, does du'as, tawassul, goes to the house of Imam Sadiq. He knocks the door, the servant comes and he says, what do you want? He says, I came here to meet Abu Abdullah. Then he says, he's praying. You want to stay, you can stay. If you want to go, you can go. He said, rather he prefers staying in that heat, I would stay. And then finally, after a while, he opens the door, he says, Imam Sadiq allowed you to come in, welcome. He goes and he sits with Imam Sadiq. Imam Sadiq says, what brings you here? He says that, once again he repeats, I want to benefit from you, I want to learn from you. Then he says, what's your name? He says, what is your, Unwan Basri? What's your kunya? He says, Abu Abdullah. He said, may Allah make you who you are, what your kunya is. Then he says in his heart that, if this visit of mine is only that Abu Abdullah, Imam Sadiq does this dua, that may Allah make you Abdullah, servant of God, that is more than enough. I have done my share. I have done my duty. Then he asks Imam Sadiq once again, Sharif. He addresses the Imam with Sharif, meaning an honorable one. Please teach me. Then Imam Sadiq stops me. My name is Abu Abdullah, call me that. Do not call me Ayatollah al-Uzama and this and that and the other. Just call me Abu Abdullah. Look at the humility, the humbleness of the Imam. These days, if you don't call somebody Hujjatul Islam or Ayatollah, they get upset. You have to address them. When you send an invitation, you have to write the whole name on the invitation. If they look at it, they say, oh, he mentioned Ayatollah, okay, then I will go. If you just mention Sheikh, he doesn't even know me, inviting me as a Sheikh, well, I will not go to his majlis. You should have written Ayatollah. So he sits there, and here Imam Sadiq alayhi salam begins saying that about ubudiyat haqiqi, the true servitude. What do you know? What is true servitude? That's how he begins. And then he discusses this true servitude. This is a very famous hadith known as Unwan Basri. Qazi Tabatabai, who was the teacher of Allama Tabatabai. Allama Tabatabai was the person who wrote the Tafsir al-Mizan, one of the famous tafsir of Allama Tabatabai is Tafsir al-Mizan, a very masterpiece, a magnum opus. One should be really proud of this tafsir. The methodology of tafsir is tafsir of Quran with Quran. He says that only Quran can interpret Quran. Only God knows His word. You and I are limited in terms of understanding the word of God. So let's use the Quran to interpret the Quran. Right? For example, the Quran says that be with the Sadiqeen in a verse. Now, who are Sadiqeen? The Quran, in another verse, explains who are the Sadiqeen, for example. Right? So it's a very special tafsir. And Allama Tabatabai, apart from this tafsir, he was well known in terms of his irfan, mysticism, very famous in irfan and mysticism. in practical mysticism as well, in the way to how really do the Sufi practices, which we tend to really not use the word of Sufi, we kind of shy away. However, Haydar Amali, a 16th century theosopher, he clearly mentions that a true Sufi is a Shia and a true Shia is a Sufi, because the irfan and the mysticism, the spirituality that we find within Shia thought that's what is discussed amongst the Sunnis, and the Shias, they are a bit shy away to really openly discuss this. Perhaps is another reason for that is that they should not be cornered as a minority, like Sufism, like it's not the mainstream. Shias are the mainstream. Shias, they say that we are it. We are the followers of Islam, right? So if they say Sufism, because Sufism is like a minority, so perhaps that could be another reason. I'm sorry, that could be another reason for it. So here, Allama Tabatabai mentions Qazi Tabatabai, who was his teacher, who was another champion, was a mountain of irfan, had mentioned that read this hadith of Unwan al-Basri like a taqibat of your prayer, meaning that a dua that you read after prayer every day. Go through this hadith of Unwan al-Basri, because it has elements of practical mysticism in it, practice, what to do. And it also opens our heart to really understand what really true servitude means. So we'll discuss that a bit in our future discussion, this hadith of Unwan al-Basri, what Imam Sadiq mentions and why he mentions that, which will make us understand the principle of servitude. And while doing so, we'll also in our future nights try to point out to some of the elements, some of the domains that really affect our servitude or ubudiyat, inshallah. And we will open the sessions for Q&A now, perhaps, inshallah. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum. You referred to using sins to connect to God. Could you please expand on that?
Yes.
Thank you.
In Munajat of Shabaniya, Imam Ali alayhi salam uses the particular word sins, dhunub, in order to connect, which is pointing out to the limitation of insan. When a human being manifests his true reality, that is supplication itself. That is dua itself. And what is my what was my true reality, or what is my true reality right now, is that I'm embarrassed. I have done this sin. So this act that I have committed, I'm using this to point out to my limitation to God. Because dua, which we'll deal with later on as well in our discussions, inshallah, the reality of dua is meeting God, man as such. Then God meets man, God as such. The amount of we manifest ourselves, man as such, then God will manifest himself, God as such. So the man as such is that I'm a sinner. Then God will manifest himself, God as such, that I'm the forgiver.
So, just a follow-up. Is it similar to repentance or recognition? That,
Yes, that is true.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you.
So the mics won't go all the way to the back, so we'll just have to project if you're speaking from the back. It's fine, no one's gonna use it. Yeah, no one's gonna use it.
question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
I would just like to repeat what you have said and see if I got it right. I don't think I got it right, but correct me, of course, if you listen to it. See, when we are born, we are not conscious. We don't have consciousness, I assume, because we are not aware of things. Consciousness is being aware. Then as we grow older, we reach a stage when we become conscious. We are aware of our surroundings, the universe. Even at a very young age, some people become conscious of their surroundings. And then, using the idea of I think, therefore I am, I start thinking. And I get to be I am. I am somebody now. And when I am somebody, I then use your philosophy of the sun and the rays. Say, well, where do these rays come from? Comes from the sun, from the source. And I use that methodology to say that there must be a creator, there must be somewhere something that makes all these things work. Am I good so far?
Yes,
Okay.
very good.
So then my question is, when I become aware of the source, then I get into, because I love it so much, I want to become a servant and go into servitude. And you said that there are two kinds of servitudes, the metaphysical and the voluntary. Now, would I be judged on the intensity of my servitude? Do I have to be severe and fanatically serve in service of Allah? Can I be just a normal human being and be in servitude? Do my prayers, do my ibadahs, help the poor, do good whenever I can? Or do I have to be, how do I want to say it? I don't want to use a bad word, but a semi-ayatul, like a Taliban type person, to be in servitude. How does a person gauge what level of servitude he or she should be in?
Yes, like as we said, can I? Yeah, it's actually. Thank you very much. Very good question. First of all, I mean, Talabani servitude is not servitude. Yeah, that's what I got the point, but I'm trying to point out to some of the those who might be watching us or listening to us, some of the youngsters, that outwardly it might have that action of servitude, serving, but in reality, there's no spirit. The spirit of servitude is not there. That's why clearly Quran said, vow unto those who are praying namaz. They are praying namaz. Day and night they are praying namaz. Right? Vow unto them. They will be in hellfire, for example. Right? So, but there is a person, as we said, a normal person, doing good amal, good deed, not the ayatollah type, as you said, right? That is the best form of ibadat. Sitting, speaking to children, spending time with the family, that is servitude, right? And now, taking one step further, and the first part of your question, in regards to consciousness. Now, this extensive, or if you want to call it extreme, servitude depends on the intention rather than the action. I might be spending time with my family, watching a movie, going for a bowling, or something. But what is the intention of that servitude? What is the intention of doing that? That's what makes it more intense. Rather than instead of sitting with my family, I'm praying, or I'm spending time, teaching or whatever, for example. So the intention really is of great value in servitude, in ibadah. Now, in regards to the consciousness, yes, when we are born, there's nothing there in terms of the consciousness compared to what we become. right? When we compare the consciousness, it's nothing there in the beginning. But there is certain amount of consciousness there, limited, whatever that, that sort of natural drive of protecting oneself, of breathing, of having milk from the mother, now, once again, this depends on the intensity of the personality of the person, of the child as well, and the environment. And there are a lot of factors that affect. A child, of a 5-year-old, he doesn't understand anything of what we are discussing, but he was playing outside, and then when his fathers ask him, "Where were you?" Although he doesn't understand anything, he knows that he should be sitting here. There's some sort of understanding or consciousness he has that he should be here rather than playing outside, although he doesn't understand anything. It's not fair on him to be here. Right? The same way that is reflected in Imam Hussein's story. Ali Asghar, 6 months, compared to another 6-month-old, but he does something that instigates or that passes that message to Imam Hussein. There's something happening, because Imam is all consciousness. If you say God is all consciousness, then in that sense of the word, that insani kamil. So he figures this out. What is he really trying to say? Right? As we do as well when we are dealing with our children. When we are dealing with some of the disabled person, the parents particularly, for example, there's a child with a Down syndrome or autistic or something, they figure it out what's going on. So the same way in regards to that consciousness and understanding of serving God that comes about later, and it becomes intense, and then it starts to kind of kick in that, okay, my intention, that's what it counts. Spending time with the family, charity work, ibadat is there as well, all of these things. Did I kind of mention or attend to your question, or still there's something? Definitely there's something left, but so what I'm trying to say that it's not that because I'm conscious, then I'm saying that there is God, then I'm kind of building up this whole, structure of ibadat and God and Quran and Prophet. That thing is something real. That servitude and God and those things are reality. It's not because I'm thinking it, then I'm trying to make all of these things and thinking there is God and all that. Those things are helping me, but all of these, Quran and all that, is not man-made kind of thing because of the consciousness of man, because he has developed that later on.
We're gonna, because the mic is a little bit short, we're gonna ask people to come up here and ask their question. So, the lady said.
Yes, just to understand, or to cross-check my understanding, because I spent the first 23 years of my life in Pakistan. So Urdu being my first language, that when we were trying to understand, and we said Allah ki riza, Allah ki usul. So helping oneself to get in sync with those things, Allah ki riza and Allah ki usul, is that, and having a very, of course, as you said, that doing that on a voluntary basis, and almost learning to understand it to the point where a light comes on in your brain when you see that you might be going towards a decision that is not in sync with Allah ki raza and Allah ki usul. Is that along the lines?
The last part, the light comes on?
Well, in your own head, because you learn to coach yourself, or you learn from the ulama or your parents or teachers, that this when you're talking about or you're dealing, because there are ethical and moral questions that face us every moment of the day, if we are aware of them. And so in that moment, because human beings are creatures of habit, and to become complacent by thinking that, oh yes, I say my prayers, you know, I read X amount of the Quran every day, or I do X, Y, Z, which are I do this, I do that, I do this, I do that, as opposed to my thought is Allah ki riza and Allah ki usul. So because then how much of X or Y you do beyond what is wajib is, I think, tied more to the intent that you're trying. I don't know if I expressed myself well enough about this.
So you're saying that the Allah ki rida and Allah ki usul is in the sense that you are performing this for that.
Right, just
For
like
the
you
sake
we
of-
were talking about the father who was spending time with the family.
Yes.
And he's spending time with the family with the understanding that his job is not just to provide food, clothing, and shelter to his family, but it is to show exemplary leadership
Yes.
and to ensure that everybody is consistently moving towards a higher level of consciousness or awareness of Allah ki riza,
Yeah.
as in, because I mean we're never physically going to meet Allah, but that feeling that
Sure.
of just being comforted and feeling secure to the degree that we can feel secure of doing the right and honorable thing.
Yes, yeah, that's what servitude is all
Thank you.
about, definitely, yeah.
Sorry, it took me
No,
so long to
no,
say that.
No, that's true. Yeah. Even if that be the case where that be a difficult calamity or an issue, a problem that we face, that also be taken as Allah ki rida and Allah ki usul in a way. That's God wanted it this way, so I accept, you know, and I take it that and raise it to a higher level. Ma asaba min musibatin famin Allah. As the Quran says, whatsoever musibat is there is from Allah. وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ, whosoever is God conscious, يَهْدِي قَلْبُهُ, his heart will be guided. If he's God conscious, his heart. See, look at Imam Hassan. Musibat, but his heart was God conscious, يَهْدِي قَلْبُهُ, his heart was guided. You see. So whether that be the time of you know, joy or distress, you know, all is from Allah. Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaykum salam.
I've been trying to answer this question for a long time, I've not been able to do it. I hope you can help. And the question for me is, there are some people in the world who are born as sort of gifted. If you look at the life of Imam Khomeini, for example, if you look at some of the Imams, they are born like that, and they do good throughout their lives. Some people, they are not in that stage. So the question then arises is that, what is the fault of those who are born with less capacity, so to speak? And how does that one is looked at it from your perspective, from the Islamic perspective?
The fault is that we compare.
Okay?
We all been given in accordance to our capacity, and we've been given the best, and we all have to play certain role or responsibilities in accordance to what we have in the best way possible. Now this comparison, if it brings about distress, then obviously that's negative. But if it brings about positive energy, then that is something that we need to engage with. You know, yes, I could do it. Now, to really know that whether some are gifted, some are not gifted, that is beyond us. And we see that pattern. What I understand what you're saying. We see that pattern. You know, some people are like that and have been given that spirit that sort of naturally is there. And there are other factors not to forget. I mean, it's not 100%. There are other factors as well, you know. But at the end of the day, if one consciously strive and struggle on this journey of knowing God, God makes it up for us. We all here does not have the opportunity to be in the seminary or to be, for example, at a given place where you could do nothing but serving, you know, these refugee camps or whatever, purely intentionally. We are preoccupied with a lot of things. But as we have that intention, right, to really know, to really serve, the fruit that we are supposed to achieve, the soul that we are supposed to make ourselves of by doing this charity, our soul becomes something. As we have that intention, you know, sincerely, in the course of time, we will be given those qualities of those people who been provided with that sort of understanding, you know, to have that knowledge which Ayatollah X have, for example, or Waliullah this have, or whatever, right? But he has gone on to that path. But I'm too much tied up with these things. I don't know, you know, Alif of Arabic to really understand and explain that philosophically. You know, Sadra said this, and you know, Tafsir says this and that. That's so fascinating and amazing. But I would like to know that. I want to have that understanding. But if I continuously try from what is given to me, God opens up the heart. That's what the first thing Imam Sadiq discusses in Unwan Basri. Ilm is nur. Al-ilmu nurun yaghzibu fi qalbi man yasha. Knowledge is like light. It's placed into the heart of whosoever God wishes and decides. And obviously God doesn't wish or decide out of His wisdom. He will decide with His wisdom, right? So if I am sincerely trying and struggling, that heart will be open to those levels of ma'arif, of that knowledge. Just by reciting of the dua, I will be understanding those levels of tawheed. I don't really need to study Ibn Arabi or Mullah Sadra or all of these scholars. I will just read the dua and I will come to those spiritual principles by reciting it, because I've been sincere to it and I've practiced it.
So in summary, you're saying people will be judged based on their capacities.
Of course.
Essentially, that's
yeah. And they will gain that knowledge and that sort of desire that they yearn for, you know, that they really want. You know, who doesn't want to really have that knowledge, you know, that understanding? Some been given that opportunity to really study and acquire and accumulate that, and they are busy doing so, but some are not.